Good morning, Tallahassee. It's time to wake up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hajavandi and Corey Clark.
Oh, man. Welcome to the program, folks. It's a Wake Up War Chant on this Monday edition. Brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. There are 3 great locations over in the College Town District, Central, Madison Social, and Township. Check them on out. Wake Up War Chant is myself, Aslan Hajavandi, and Corey Clark, the senior writer for WarChant.com. Corey joins us thanks to efficient and affordable technology over in the A. Corey, how are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Hopefully that song kind of summed up my feelings. I played.
It was so close, too.
It
was so close, the dream of the Final Four. And the thing is, you get to the Final Four and you're playing Loyola Chicago. So you're like, okay, if you beat Michigan, there's a real good chance you're playing in the national championship game, which is just crazy to even think about. But, yeah, it didn't happen.
Speaking of crazy, I almost feel like besides losing in the national title game, I think losing in the Elite Eight is more painful than losing in the Final Four. I don't know if that. I think you're so close to making that final weekend. When you make it to that final weekend, it's just there's something about actually making it into that final weekend, being part of the Final Four. That even if you don't make it past the national semifinal to the championship game, it's just one of those things where you still walk away feeling really good. And Florida State and their fans should obviously feel really good about making it that far. But like just one more game away.
Yeah, it's a weird deal that the Final Eight, the Elite Eight, because it is. I feel like that might be more pressure than any of the other games, just because of what the Final Four represents. It's a whole nother week you get to keep your team together. It almost is like the national championship game it's not an afterthought, but you don't, when you think of the Final Four, you don't really think of that Monday night as much as you do the Saturday, and just what a great spectacle that is. And to get to play in that game, it's such an accomplishment. And so, I think that game, there might be more pressure on teams in the Elite Eight game trying to get to the Final Four than maybe even there is in the national championship game. Because when you get to the Final Four, especially if you get to the national championship game, you've already accomplished a great deal. And Florida State had already accomplished quite a bit even before Saturday night, but still, you're so close to making history, and it wasn't meant to be. I can understand that it's almost sadder to lose then than it would have been to lose on next Saturday to Loyola Chicago.
Yeah, 58-54 was the final, Michigan over Florida State in the regional final in the West region in the Elite Eight. Anything stand out to you in that game? I mean, listen, man, I think I, for some reason, got confused on the message boards for being somebody that was upset at Leonard Hamilton due to what happened in his post-game news conference, but we'll get to that later. But totally proud of that team, and I'm not trying to have any sort of, consolation trophy. Everybody gets a cookie. Everybody gets sprinkles on their sundae. There's nothing to really feel bad about, in my opinion, if you're a Florida State fan or that team. Not even the whole fact that no one gave them a chance or anything of that nature. Just they didn't. I don't think they choked or anything. They didn't choke the game away. They didn't blow a big lead. They didn't, shrink in a big moment. Just simply nothing just went right in that last kind of minute and a half. And I guess you can say, well, they should have done better. But I just walk away from it, the fact that they made a couple stops. They couldn't get shots that fall there in the last minute and a half. My buddies are all like, what was PJ Savoy doing with that last shot? And I'm like, well, I don't think anybody wanted the ball in their hand. And PJ's like, well, shoot, I'm just going to let it go. Someone's got to shoot it. So, I walk away kind of held head high, feeling good about the future, which I don't want to get too much into right now. But just, I guess, what were your initial thoughts, after the game kind of came to an end?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the better team won, to be honest with you. It didn't feel like a fluke. It felt like in that last 2 minutes, I mean, PJ Savoy had a chance to tie the game with whatever it was, like 45 seconds left. That, to me, is remarkable because they didn't play well, and they had a chance to tie the game in the Elite Eight, and then some pressure really would have been on Michigan. But I think overall, I would have felt like Florida State had stolen that game, quote unquote.
Yeah.
If they had been able to pull that out, if he makes that three and they somehow win in overtime or win in regulation, it would have felt to me like Florida State had stolen that game. Michigan missed some open threes that they usually make. Michigan was really guarded well though. Florida State, I don't know what happened, but they turned into an elite defensive team the last 4 games after not being that at all the whole season. And I know you don't want to talk about next season, but holy moly, that changes the whole complexion of the season if they're going to guard like that. But flukes happen, and you are allowed to steal games in the Elite Eight, and they were that close to doing it. It just didn't happen. Michigan's really good defensively, which is not what you think about when you think about Michigan, but they are. In Florida State, Trent Forrest was 1 for 5, Angola was 0 for 6. You're not going to beat. It's hard to beat good teams when your two best scoring guards go 1 for 11.
Yeah,
so Kofor was good. Nobody else really did much of anything. Savoy hit some threes, but he also missed a lot too.
Yeah, I think Michigan maybe finally got the scouting report on Trent. They clogged the lane really well and didn't let Trent, drive to the rim and get penetration like he has been at the same time.
I still feel like he missed some shots that he normally makes. Like he's good at finishing even when he's being contested. And I just felt for that game he missed some shots that he normally makes, and he didn't kind of control the game like he had been the last month or so.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, there were some that, lipped out and things of that, sort of nature that were kind of a bummer to see. But, I mean, the only hindsight thing, and it's obviously sitting in the comfort of my, apartment in silence, just watching this nervously. And, I have no problem with it because, there was that point where who was the kid on the team that was absolutely horrendous at free throws? Simpson, the kid, right? Isn't that the Simpson kid was terrible at free throws? Well, Michigan was inbounding the ball. And I think, Rafferty, whoever was doing the color alongside Harlan, Reggie Miller, one of the guys, was pointing out the fact that, they were about to inbound it and Simpson was open, but then Florida State, challenged him where they should have just let him actually get the ball on the inbound and then they would have fouled him. But you're not thinking, I don't know if that's hard to process in that moment, basically playing a road game. I know it's Los Angeles, but I mean, that sounded 98% Michigan, 2% Florida State. So in that moment, that was the one thing that was that's the one thing I'd want back. I mean, I know PJ's last shot maybe wasn't the best look, but I feel like, I don't know how much time was left on the clock at that point, but if they would have let the ball inbound into Simpson and fouled him, it's at the point where you think he was only going to get 1 of 2. Rather, they got the kid that is like the 90% shooter, went to the line and knocked down 2. So that was the kind of tough thing where man, why did they cover him? But at the same time, it's a sort of reflex thing. It's hard to tell guys that have been playing really great defense for the last week and a half to play bad defense in that point.
Well, and I thought, the last few possessions kind of became a blur to me, but I think when they got it down to 3, or when they were making their run in the final 90 seconds, it looked like one of the possessions they were just going to play straight defense and not foul, even though they probably should have, until the Simpson kid got the ball, and then they raced over to him and fouled him. And of course, he missed the front end. And then they fouled him again, and he made 1 out of 2. So that kid, they sent him to the line 3 times. He only made 1. So that worked out. It was just they also happened to foul the kid, which they shouldn't have. Terrence Mann, I think maybe it was when they cut it to 3. I don't
Duncan
remember the
Robinson.
exact specifics.
Yeah. But
Terrence Mann fouled the kid that he shouldn't have fouled. The 90%er. He got the ball in his hands, and they should have made him give it up. But I did think they did a really good job of when the Simpson kid got the ball, they raced to him to make sure they fouled him.
Yes.
I don't know the play, the inbound play you're talking about. I just remember they guarded for a little bit, and it looked like they were going to run it out and make them go score. And I think it's when they cut it to 3, actually. They cut it to 3, and then Michigan had the ball, and it looked like Florida State was just going to play defense and see if they could get a stop until the Simpson kid got the pass. And then they raced over and fouled him immediately. He missed the front end, that's perfect coaching. That's perfect coaching. Michigan should have never had a 50% free throw shooter in the game. They did. Florida State recognized it. When he got the ball, they went and fouled him, and he missed the front end. It just so happened that Savoy missed his 3. And then they had to foul. I think they fouled him again. He made 1 of 2, and then the other kid made both, the 90%er. But, I know a lot was made about them not fouling at the end. It just – some of it was just bad luck, man. Number one, Terrence Mann had 4 fouls, so he didn't want to foul out. And Leonard Hamilton's never going to say, yeah, my junior should have fouled the kid and didn't. That's just not what Leonard Hamilton does. But also the game was over. I mean, there was 11 seconds left. You have no timeouts. You're already down 4, and you're sending a 90% free throw shooter to the line. I get it. You still lengthen it. You still extend it. I get it because miracles do happen. But when Savoy threw up the crazy shot, that was the end of the season. And I think what happened was Terrence Mann didn't want to foul, and he didn't want to foul that kid in particular, so he backed off. And then I guess the rest of the teammates saw that and were like, "Oh, I guess we're not fouling." Is my inkling of what happened there at the end.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I don't think Hamilton was yelling, "Don't foul." He wouldn't do that with down. I mean, I've watched enough Florida State basketball games to watch them play it out to the end. Chris Singleton used to score 18 points in the final. Hey, that's what XRM scored 30 and 422 because they kept fouling. They don't just give up with 12 seconds left. I think Terrence Mann just didn't want to pick up the fifth foul, and he didn't want to foul the 90% free throw shooter, and there was some miscommunication. And by the time they thought, oh, well, we should foul, there's 8 seconds left, 6 seconds left, they let the clock run out. Again, what bothered me about that was, man, that wasn't the game. You know, the game came down to Florida State not making shots, not because they didn't foul with 11 seconds left.
Well, and I don't think anybody was saying that, and we'll get to that in a second. Just to touch up on a couple of things they were mentioning, there was 40 seconds left when they did commit that foul on Xavier Simpson. He actually. And
what was the score? It was they
50,
were down by 3?
Yeah, it was 52. It was 55 Michigan, Florida State 52. He actually made the front end, but he missed the second free throw. So it was 56-52 after that. I'm looking in here. I don't see any point in that last minute and a half where he missed the front end of the bonus or anything like that.
Man, really? I swear I thought they fouled him immediately.
There was one. There was one when it was an 8-point game with 1:38 left. Trent fouled him, and then he missed the free throw.
Oh,
it was,
yeah. Okay,
it was
there
54-46.
So that's what I was thinking about. Okay. Yeah, and then I think Savoy got fouled on the next.
Yes, he made his free throws.
So they're down 8 with 1:30 left. I think Mann had just hit a jumper to cut it back to 8.
Correct.
And then Michigan makes the mistake of passing it to their worst free throw shooter.
Yep.
And Florida State, instead of playing it out or just fouling as soon as Terrence Mann made the shot, instead of fouling right then, they waited until Michigan's worst free throw shooter got the ball, and then they pounced on him. And that's good coaching. He misses the front end. I've never seen a kid dribble to his right like that, by the way. That was bizarre. Yeah. You can see why he's not. Anytime a guy has to – he literally takes a look and dribbles to his right. It's like, okay, he's a mess at the free throw line. He missed that, and then they cut it to 5, somehow cut it to 3, and then, so then they fouled him, and he made 1 of 2. Well, that's a big front end that he made then to get it up to 4.
Yeah.
But they fouled the right guy. I mean – You fouled the right guy when you cut it to 3, and then they fouled the right guy twice in the final 90 seconds.
No, I agree,
and it almost paid off for him.
The only thing was though, 21 seconds left. You know, Phil makes the tip-in shot to make it a 2-point game. They do everything great on the inbound in terms of defending. Xavier Simpson is left open, but then somebody lunges at him to cover him and pick him up on the inbound, which they shouldn't have done. And again, that's the one.
You're saying.
And that's the one thing. Like, I'm not going to fault you because in that moment, again, you've been playing really great defense for the last week and a half. You're not thinking, oh, I'm going to let off this guy because even that moment, you might even not know who you're covering in that moment. So the fact that you see somebody open, you're going to jump at him and make sure he's not covered. And unfortunately, that left Duncan Robinson open. He knocks down both free throws, makes it a 4-point game, and then we get to the whole point where they don't foul. And I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm not going to act. I'm going to act a whole bunch of times on here like I know a lot more about football than I really do. Probably, I'm not going to do it with basketball. But I don't understand the whole, and everyone jumped on me on War Chant about, how don't you see that, Ham was defending Terrence? I'm like, what is he defending? I don't understand. Like, why would you defend Terrence? Like, you foul in that moment. I don't care if you got 5 in the NBA or 4 in college, and I don't know, man, you're Marvin Bagley. Like, you foul. It's like your team's season is on the line. The whole mental process of me thinking that he's thinking to himself, oh, I can't foul or I'm going to be out of the game. My team's going to lose. I don't know if that's going through his head. And I'm not saying that Leonard didn't say don't foul him, but nobody was screaming at him, foul, foul, foul. And you figured there'd be somebody on that sideline that would say, foul him, foul him. But I defer to you, and I agree that, listen, at the end of the day, it's a 4-point game. There's no timeouts left. There's 11 seconds if they make that foul. He's a 90% free throw shooter. At that point, the game is lost. But listen, there's a lot of people out there that would say that you and I, Corey, have a loser's mentality on that sort of thing. And there's a lot of people that say you need to fight every single.
Better not say that to my face.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not proud of it. I would like the game is over. But that's a really crappy attitude to have. And I'm just some guy watching the game at home. When you're in the arena, man, I don't know. That's not the best sort of lasting impression of a season. Unless that's probably not what a lot of people are going to walk away from. But like the nation at large, they're going to remember that, and then they remember him talking to Danny Jacobson after the game. Like, they're not going to remember this team beating Xavier or pouncing Gonzaga. Like, that's going to be the lasting memory of a lot of folks for the next week and a half, 2 weeks, and they're all going to forget about it, and then we can all go on with our lives.
Yeah, and that's kind of the unfortunate thing is not only that. I mean, that was a blip. They didn't foul. Okay, fine. They waved their white flag, whatever. It was unlucky that the 90%er grabbed the rebound, whatever. But the interview afterwards, and Leonard issued an apology on Sunday.
It's not an apology. What was
so unfortunate.
It's not an apology.
Was because because it was such a great run, and it wasn't a pretty game, but it was a very competitive game, and Florida State didn't back down at all. And like you said, even though it sounded like a road game, is Ann Arbor in California?
Shoot, telling me.
Where were they? Where were all those Michigan fans? How are they there?
They're everywhere, man. They're like large. They probably have like one of the largest alumni bases in the country, I would imagine. So, I mean, it's one of the largest cities in the country. I guess so.
Yeah, well, they showed up, and I have to imagine Florida State probably had 100, and Michigan probably had 8 or 10,000. So it was a road game, and they didn't back down, and they were in a game with a minute left against a team that's as hot as any team in the country. And then at the end, it became how Leonard acted in the post game when he was asked a legitimate question.
He was. A lot of people got mad at me for saying that, but that was a fair question. And listen, this isn't Little League football. This isn't, wow, coach, what a great season. Talk about your boys real quick, because nobody in Moline, Illinois cares about that. Nobody in Amarillo, Texas cares about Florida State basketball. Nobody in Spokane, Washington cares about Florida State basketball. Kenny Smith is in the studio saying, man, why did they not foul? And he's saying that in the studio. The truck in Los Angeles is probably hearing Kenny Smith talking about that. Then they're telling Dana, listen, you got to get him. Ask him right off the bat. We don't have a lot of time. Get right to it. So people are saying, well, she should have eased into it. She went at his jugular. Listen, that's a fair question. A lot of people want to know about that. And I thought the way she asked it was very fair. I think the way she responded to Leonard being a little bit surly, I thought was really fair too. But I'm dealing with obviously Florida State fans who are on the payroll that are really passionate about things. And it's kind of cool, I guess, to see them defend their coach. But he wasn't right in that moment. It wasn't a terrible thing. It wasn't the best look. It wasn't terrible, but he was in the wrong there.
Well, he's not Greg Popovich, though. It wasn't the end of the world. It was just it was an awkward 45 seconds of television. Again, to me, that's certainly if I'd have been the press conference, my first question wouldn't have been, why didn't you foul down 4 with 11 seconds left? I mean, my first question would be, what did they do defensively to stop you? A team that had been playing well offensively for 4 games, and they just shut you down. What did they do? That was the difference in the game. Not some foul. You didn't foul a 90% free throw shooter. That, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't. I get that it had to be or you wanted to ask it. That
was the burning question. But I don't think her job. Like, that's a difference between like TV and print. Like, you guys are painting a bigger picture of the game. Her thing is instant analysis, reaction, like emotional, like something that's going to play good for television. And it's not a gotcha question, but like in that moment, that's the one burning question that people that watch that game probably want to know that aren't invested in Florida State. And they're probably, what I'm saying, like the nation at large that's watching that game, that's what they're kind of like, why did he do that? And we want an answer on that. And she asked, and I thought, and listen, the release that he made on Sunday night, I thought was the right thing to do. I don't harbor any ill will towards Ham. It's a little bit uncomfortable, man, because this whole Ham hater, Ham lover thing, I thought the Ham lover thing was more of I don't know, like an exaggeration. But there's people who really, really feel very strongly and passionately about how good of a coach Leonard Hamilton is, and I've got nothing wrong with that. But like, people are tossing around accusations of like latent racism that makes me uncomfortable, that like they're saying that I was going at him, and I don't know, there's certain things that just happened that made me really uncomfortable about a moment that I just thought was not a very good diplomatic sort of moment for a coach. And I know it's a difficult thing, but listen, I went back and looked at Dan Quinn talking to Aaron Andrews after they blew the Super Bowl. I went and listened to Bill Belichick talk to Chris Myers after they were 17-0 and lost to Eli Manning on a fluke play, and those guys handled it, man. They sucked it up. They answered the questions, and there was no animosity or anything like that. So he could have handled it better.
What I would counter with that was, I bet you they weren't asked about why did you defer and get what I bet the first question they were asked was why. It probably wasn't, why did you defer the kickoff and receive the second half? What were you thinking there? Like, the question he was asked had nothing to do with the result in the game. Zero. Florida State had lost the game. So
a lot of people disagree with us on that, Corey, and I agree with you. Like, I don't think they.
Look. Crazy things happen. Sure, the 90% free throw shooter that just buried 2 under real pressure might then feel less pressure and somehow miss 2 in a row. Okay, fine. You're down 4 with 11 seconds left, no timeouts. You go miracle yourself a layup with 5 seconds left. Foul the same guy again or somebody else. Get a steal. It can happen. I'm not saying it couldn't. But the game was essentially over. That wasn't what the game came down to. It just, again, it was something that should have been asked. It didn't make sense. I get it. It was a completely legitimate question. I just don't think it was the burning question from that game. But it became that. And then Leonard made it more than what it was by not just saying, look, we had a youngster that was confused. He didn't want to foul out. We told him not to foul that guy because that guy's a 90% free throw shooter. We had told all our guys not to foul him again. But under those circumstances, obviously he has to know we have to extend the game, and he should have fouled, even though we didn't want to foul him. All that stuff should have been said. Leonard didn't handle it right. But it wasn't the burning question after a game like that in my mind. But, I get what you're saying. The people that don't watch Florida State, they were just bumfuzzled by it.
Good word choice. Congratulations, by the way. This was the longest segment in Wake Up War Chant history. So we did it. Let's retreat to a commercial break. When we come back, let's talk about some other gummings and goings and happenings with Florida State athletics. It's Wake Up War Chant right here on ESPN 979 Tallahassee.
The excitement of the Willie Taggart era at Florida State is in full force. That's why now's the perfect time to sign up at warchant.com. Warchant.com will have wall-to-wall coverage of spring football practice, including the latest on position battles, coach and player interviews, video features, and in-depth analysis. Warchant.com's three-team writers Gene Williams, Ira Schofel, and Corey Clark have 50 years of experience covering the Seminoles. And Warchant.com is the only FSU media outlet with a dedicated, full-time recruiting analyst in Tallahassee with the latest on the 2019 class. For your 30-day free trial subscription, head to Warchant.com and use promo code WARCHANT30.
Welcome back into Wake Up War Chant. He's Corey Clark. I'm Aslan Hajavandi, Director of Digital Media for WarChant.com. Thanks for being here, folks. The show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality and their 3 rocking locations over in the College Town District, Central, Madison Social, and Township. Pick 1, pick 2, pick 3. Do what you wish. Corey, so you're the oracle, man. You want to give us some give us the autopsy as you walk away from Florida State's basketball postseason, and then obviously, I mean, there's nothing but a bright future ahead for Florida State in the immediate future.
Well, I think I should be called the Coracle, to be honest with you. Nice. That's not a bad nickname, right?
Not at all.
No, real quick, though, I just want to point out, we were talking during the break. If people are confused, I definitely think Leonard Hamilton should have fouled. It was dumb not to. The Florida State should have fouled. There's no reason not to unless you've got money on the game. I think the spread was 4.5, so, Yeah. But so a lot of people are really happy or really upset with that decision, but I do think he should have fouled. I wasn't defending the decision not to foul. I was just saying that in the end it didn't matter, and I feel like he felt like that question was kind of irrelevant to why they lost the game, and it wasn't a game-related question like what did they do, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, and hey, real quick, I'm sorry.
Ahead.
So, and we believe that Terrence goofed up and Leonard kind of jumped on a grenade for him, like Terrence is supposed to foul. And
obviously Leonard Hamilton. I've watched a ton of games. He doesn't just tap out with 11 seconds left. He just doesn't. Even when they're down 9 with a minute left, he'll foul and call timeouts and do all that. I've seen him drag out games for 12 minutes. I just think Terrence Mann was with 4 fouls. He didn't want to foul that guy because they had been told specifically, don't foul that guy. And then in the communication, the players just assumed, I guess we're not fouling because Terrence didn't foul him. And then that was that. And so maybe, he should have said, look, one of my youngsters was confused. We wanted him to foul. He didn't because it was the 90%er, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
I do think that's what happened. I can't in a million years think that they told the players because they never have a timeout. So I don't think they would have told the players, hey, look, if that kid makes both free throws, go and chuck up a crazy 3. And if we don't make it, go ahead and just walk off the court. Okay. Ball game.
All right.
I don't think that happened. I just think there was a miscommunication.
Okay. That's fair enough.
But anyway, going to next season, yeah, man, I think it's not so much because honestly, the first 30 games of this season, Florida State was just a decent team. Well, that's not true. At the beginning of the year, they were really good. They were playing not great teams, but they were dominating them. But in the ACC, they were just a middling team. They were 9-9, finished 8th, average for an ACC team. Above average for Division I basketball, but just an average ACC team. They won enough games to get in the tournament. And so when you look at it from in that prism, you're like, okay, well, they should be a little bit better next year because most of the team's coming back except for Angola, maybe Kofor, but Kofor could very well come back too. So they'll be a little better. Maybe they win, instead of going 9-9, they go 11-7 or 10-8 or whatever. And then instead of being a 9 seed, maybe they're a 6 seed. But then you watch the way they play. I'm telling you, man, more than anything, it's just what they did defensively over those last 2 weekends. Michigan is a terrific offense. They had just scored 100 points. And then Florida State held them to 58, held them to 41 points less than they scored the game before. At the end of the game, Xavier couldn't do anything. And some of Xavier's baskets were nuts anyway. Gonzaga, they completely took Gonzaga out of doing anything. They became a dominant defensive force like they were in 2011 and like they were in 2012. Only I think this team is better than those teams because it has skill on the other end. It's not just a vice. It's not just a defensive juggernaut that's lucky to score 50 points. I think this team, if it really figured out what it's supposed to do defensively, if it finally figured out how it's supposed to play, could be a 2 or a 3 seed next year. That's what I think the ceiling is now, if they figured out how to play defense. Because that was kind of incredible what they did those 4 games in the tournament, especially considering how they looked for most of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we heard that's what they're going to have to do to win. I don't know how optimistic we were that they're going to be able to flip that switch. That
not very.
Doesn't really exist, but they somehow figured out a way to do so, which also comes back to the debate that you and I have about, regular season versus postseason. Somebody distilled it down like this on warchant.com, and I'm like, man, what a sort of pessimistic view, but it is kind of true. I mean, when you think about it, Florida State just won 3 games. Okay, so Florida State just went had a 3-game winning streak, and is that supposed to make that a more successful season than a team like Virginia, who won the conference, was a number 1 overall seed, but bowed out in fairly disgraceful fashion? To which I say, absolutely. Absolutely. I would take, I don't care if Florida State goes 9-9 again next year in the ACC. I don't care if they go 8-10 and they are a legitimate bubble team and everybody's chewing their fingernails on Selection Sunday. If they can give you 3 more wins again, that's what it's all about to me. And I don't know if there's a way to divorce the two things of being successful, November through February and then going on a run in March. But, man, this was fun. This was the most fun I've had as a Florida State basketball observer in my life, probably. So I'll sign up for this any day over a 27-win regular season or being a 2 seed or a 3 seed.
Hey, man, you know what, though? They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And next year, the Jacksonville is one of the sites. So if Florida State has a good enough year like they should play their first 2 games in Jacksonville, which you think would be a nice home crowd. And then all of a sudden, if you play well and win the games you're supposed to win in Jacksonville, you're in the Sweet 16 again. And from there, anything can happen, just like we saw in Atlanta with Loyola Chicago, just like we almost saw in L.A., where Florida State was a couple plays from going to the Final Four. I mean, you just got to keep giving yourself a chance. It's hard to say the this or that argument because they typically go hand in hand. And it's not like you can say, yeah, give me a 9-9, but get me to the Final Four. I mean, that's all, a lot of it, the tournament is luck and it's bounces and it's matchups and it's all that. But yeah, man, just give yourself a chance. I mean, it's how crazy is it that if Houston guards the inbounder, I am confident Florida State would be going to San Antonio next weekend.
Yeah,
because I think they would have beaten Houston or Texas A&M, whoever they would have had to play. All Houston had to do was guard the inbounder against Michigan. Think how close Loyola Chicago was to getting knocked out in the first round.
Right.
And now they're in the Final Four. It's such a weird tournament, and that's why it can be hard to judge an entire season by that. But that's the sport. That's what they set it up for. It's everything is about the tournament.
It's a beautiful thing. We got to go to break, but real quick before we go there, like in 10 years, what are you going to talk to Brady about more? The year that Florida State won the ACC tournament, and then was a 3 or 4 seed, whatever they were, or are you going to talk about the 2017-18 season?
I feel like I'm going to talk about the 2019 national championship.
There we go. Boom. Perfect.
That's what I think I'm going to be talking the most about.
Maybe before that happens, Florida State can string together something on the football field. We'll talk about spring football right after this here on Wake Up War Chant, ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
life we're living in. Let me tell ya. And it's a world that men.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aslan. He's Corey. It's Wake Up War Chant on this Monday. Hope your day is zipping on by as fast as possible. This show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality and their 3 locations over in the College Town District, Madison Social, Township, and Central. Check them on out. You shan't be disappointed. He's Corey Clark joining me as always. So, Corey, basketball season's over. Great, bright promise for the future. We shift our attention now to baseball. Mike Martin's pursuit of the all-time wins record closing in. I think 12 now, I want to say. If
12 away, yep. 12 away.
If he runs the table, we're looking at a potential Sunday of spring weekend crowning of the all-time wins leader in collegiate baseball history. That's kind of cool.
I mean, that seems really unlikely, though, because, number one, that would mean they'd have to beat Florida.
Oh, touche.
Yeah, but they have to play Florida, and they play Florida twice during that span.
I will pump the brakes.
Plus, they're Louisville, Georgia Tech. No, I don't think it'll happen. I don't think they're about to win 12 in a row.
Just
but
dream
hey,
a
man,
little
you
dream,
never know.
Corey. Dream a little dream for me, Corey.
Sure.
All right, but Florida State was able to string together another ACC series victory, this time on the road against North Carolina, taking 2 of 3 from the Tar Heels. On Sunday, power in plentiful supply, it sounded like.
Yeah, and that's, we had talked a couple weeks ago, even when they were doing well, I was a little surprised by the lack of power. Nobody was slugging. Well, that's turned around. Jackson Luke hit another. I think he had a couple home runs this weekend, including one on Sunday. And then Nick Durr leads the team in home runs with 5. He's the lead. I think he's kind of entrenched himself, at least for the time being, as the leadoff hitter. And he's done a good job there. He's getting on base. He hit a grand slam in the 8th inning on Sunday. It was 4-4. And facing North Carolina's lights out closer, a guy that's going to be an early round pick, and hit a grand slam off him. And and then Luke went back to back, I think, on the next pitch. So the offense is starting to come around. This weekend they scored 8, 6, and then 9 runs. So 23 runs in 3 games at North Carolina. That's a really nice weekend for your offense. The pitching, the starting pitching in particular, left a lot to be desired, though. Cole Sands, for the second straight start, gave up 4 runs in the first inning. Actually, I think he gave up 5 runs in the first inning. In the start before against Notre Dame, he gave up 4 runs in the first inning. After that, he's been fine, but the first inning has been awful for him, and he put his team in a huge bind by not even able to get out of the 5th inning. So they had to go to the bullpen earlier than they wanted, especially on a doubleheader, and then the game got away from them. They lost 16-8. But overall, I thought that was a really nice series win for them.
And that's the thing, too. You talk about they're kind of thrust into the need to play all these young arms so early in the season. And, we're seeing guys maybe kind of ebb and flow like an Austin Pollock, but there's just so many options they have that we're seeing guys come into tight situations and have good success, which I think will bode well, obviously, down the line. This weekend, it seemed like it was C.J. Van Eck's turn to kind of maybe thrust himself into the conversation for getting more, action out there coming out of the bullpen.
Yeah, he was really good on Sunday. Austin Pollock, I think, went 4 1/3 or 4 2/3. And then Van Eck pitched the rest of the game and pitched well. I think he gave up 1 run, maybe.
Just 2 hits?
Yeah, I mean,
74
struck
pitches.
out 5 or 6. He looked the part, and he's going to be a big-time part of this, a piece of this rotation or bullpen of the pitching staff in general. Because you're starting to see, look, Kobe Johnson needs a good outing again. He hasn't had one in a while. He needs to get back and look like the guy he looked like at the beginning of the year. That would really help. I think Hutchinson is done. He came in and gave up 7 runs in an inning, and his ERA is now 13.5. So I don't think he's going to be counted on for any more big innings. So now you have Scolaro, you have Kwiatkowski, you have Connor Grady, you have Kobe Johnson maybe, and you have Van Eck. So you still got some pieces. But you also hope that Cole Sands gets this thing figured out kind of soon, because you need your Friday night guy not to keep getting lit up in the first inning of every series. That has to stop happening. And by the way, we haven't talked about him hardly at all, but Drew Parrish is a really good college pitcher. It was a good again on over the weekend when they really needed him. He's by far their most consistent pitcher on the starting staff right now.
Yeah, and I don't know what Mike Bell and 11's sort of philosophy is on. I know 11 doesn't mind tinkering with his lineups, but in terms of maybe you put Drew eventually in the Friday night position. Maybe that takes some sort of pressure off, Cole. Maybe Drew can scout it out for Cole. Cole can watch on Fridays, see the way Drew works through the lineup and what works for him, and Drew can kind of communicate to him, and maybe that'll allow Cole to be a little more successful if he's struggling here. So that's why I'm not too concerned about the front end of the rotation. I feel like if Cole doesn't get it right, I think Drew will, and then maybe that takes the pressure off Cole, and they're in a better position. So the Noles back in action at Hauser this weekend, 3-game set against Louisville. That'll be a Thursday through Saturday set. But before that, over in Jacksonville, neutral site game against the Gators, 6 o'clock on Tuesday. So perhaps I'll make it out there. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Jacksonville's.
And by the way, J.C. Flowers had to stay in the hospital overnight on Sunday night. He took a knee to the head, sliding into second, and they left him at North Carolina hospital for precautionary reasons. So hopefully later today we'll have an update on how he's doing and when he can come back and join the team. But that's always scary when a guy kind of gets knocked out in the middle of the field. It has to be helped off and then has to stay a night in the hospital. So you hope he's okay.
Was that in the outfield, or was that like a play on the base
No, he was
pass?
sliding into second.
Okay.
He was sliding into second.
Oh,
and then I think like 8 pitches later is when Durr hit the home run.
Well, there you go. Put that in your pipe and smoke in North Carolina.
Yeah, got him back for that anyway.
All right, let's talk about football real quick in this segment before we wrap things up. I just want to mention one thing that I don't know. I mean, I got the power of the internet here at my disposal, but Florida State's Junior Day wrapped up. I think the biggest news, and I'm not going to read the entire spoiler because you should go on the warchant.com and read the work from Michael Langston, who is a tireless guy on the recruiting trail. Man, he was texting me at 8 o'clock in the morning, giving me recruiting updates, and I'm like, golly, man. Don't you? Did
you tell him to stop doing that?
Seriously, I'm like, come on, man, let me sleep, big guy. But anywho, I guess the big development here is that Florida State's going to be a major player for a player who's literally the fourth best wide receiver in the nation, according to Rivals.com. Maurice Goolsby out of Denellen High School, which is where Terrence Brooks went to high school, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, all right. Yeah, there you go.
6'5", 193. The crazy thing to me here, Corey, is this guy is the 5th overall prospect in the state of Florida, the 4th best wide receiver in the entire nation, and he's only a 4-star. Like, if you're the 5th best guy in the state of Florida, you should be a 5-star. But
there's 50 states though, and there's only 25.
We're the best.
Don't they only have like 25 5-stars?
We're the best. We're the best, Corey.
Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong there. It's either California or Florida. Usually Florida.
Yeah, he's 28th. 28th in the nation.
He might be a 5-star by the time it matters.
Right. And I mean, it's so weird to kind of try to parse words when you're reading a recruiting update and to listening to what a guy's got to say. I know there's that one offensive lineman that was here for the last Junior Day, and his name escapes me, but was, literally said that, Willie Taggart pretty much became my father. Like, I think it was Raymond Woody, I think, kind of stepped in and was a father for him when he lost his own father. And they're just a different kind of bond. And I know the previous regime talked about family, but you never really heard it from the recruits. It took 2 or 3 years before a guy would be in the program where he would mention the word family. But, I mean, the recruiting update that Michael Langston has on this guy, there's just some words that are spoken in that where you're just like, this has got to be a slam dunk for Florida State, because it's Willie Taggart taking the lead on this kid. And he seems to be really impressed with the way that, Willie kind of treated him and his family. Michael pointed out something that when these kids are showing up now to Junior Day, Corey, they walk into the Moore Center right next to the Bobby Bowden statue. And it used to be just one of those things, I guess, where they would walk in and the clerk or the receptionist at the desk would just kind of, buzz down a coach or what have you. But, Michael was saying that the coaches are all down there in the lobby. They're opening the door for the families and welcoming them into the Moore Center, which I guess is having a positive sort of, I mean, that's cool, right? I mean, 4 or 5 coaches are there opening the door for your mom and your dad, and they're welcoming you on the campus. Sounds hokey maybe, but I don't know. That's the way you got to recruit kids, I would imagine. Well,
I mean, yeah, you want them to feel welcome, right? You don't want them to feel like a bother. No. Like, hey, coach, your 2 o'clock is here. Right. You know what I mean? You don't want to feel like that. So, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And again, I mean, I would be stunned if Florida State during Willie Taggart's tenure is not one of the top 2 or 3 recruiting teams in the country. I'm always going to assume Alabama was Saban, maybe Ohio State, but other than that, Florida State with him should just absolutely clean up.
And your boy Kirby's been doing a pretty good job, too. Let's step aside for our final break of the day. When we come back, some rapid reaction and thoughts and what we want to see from Florida State in the second week, I guess you could say, of spring football. We'll be right back after this.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
What's up, everybody? Monday edition of Wake Up War Chant. I'm Aslan alongside Corey Clark. This is brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. The 3 locations are in the Collegetown District, Central, Madison Social, and Township. Go ahead, check them out, and enjoy yourself. All right, Corey, spring football is back. It's been back now. They'll be in full pads today, if I'm not mistaken, later this morning. They'll be in full pads, full go. So now we can actually start looking at some more things other than one-on-one drills with wide receivers and cornerbacks. Is there anything in particular that you want to see once the pads start popping?
Well, I mean, I'd like to see another practice. Do you think he'll let us do that?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so it's over then? Like, we're only going to get the first 10 minutes like we did Saturday, and that's it from here on out?
I don't know. Like, I think there's a chance he might open up another one to the public or open up one to the media. I feel like that's a possibility, but either way, we'll get to see the first 15 minutes at least of what they do. And so I don't know. I think, you want them to get healthy. That's what you want. You don't want to see people, walking off on crutches. And other than that, man, I don't know what you're really looking for spring football wise, other than just, I think the biggest adjustment they have to make, it's not even the playbook. It's just getting used to the speed.
Yeah.
The speed he wants to operate. That's the biggest adjustment for this spring. Not so much installing an offense and installing a defense. It's just getting used to that breakneck speed.
And it's pretty fast, man. And I like it from being a videographer and trying to film and get reps. And we only have a certain amount of time to be out there, obviously. So to see them blow through all that stuff is good for business, at least for me. A couple things that I don't think we didn't find out until Friday morning, so we weren't able to relay it to you guys. But Nooney Murray is going to be out for the entire spring. Partially torn, I think, meniscus is what he said, if I'm not mistaken.
But he also said he expects him to be back quick, as in it shouldn't carry over into the summer or fall.
Yeah, we need to see if maybe we get some details of it. I assume it's not going to be a Derwin thing where they're going to sew the meniscus back together. Maybe that's one of the things where they shave it off. It wasn't too bad because that was the whole thing with Derwin. It was either A, he comes back faster, they shave off the meniscus, but longer term it's not as good for him, or they shut him down, sew it back together, and his future prospects are a lot better off. So hopefully this is one of those things where it wasn't as serious and they can just shave it off, or the rest, I guess, it will kind of help mend it. We need to have like an orthopedic guy we go to, like a Stefania Bell
like
ESPN.
You're the orthopedic guy we go to.
I'm just faking it, man. I'm just faking it. Also, Bavion Johnson, who's a lot of your saviors on the offensive line, he's going to probably miss some extended time here. He's got some sort of knee issue that's been troubling him from last season. Taggart said they're going to evaluate him. There's nothing for certain on him, but I think, Gene Williams was able to work a couple things that made it sound like it probably won't be back in time for the spring. So that'll give guys like Corey Martinez an opportunity to step up. Brady Scott, who I think is out there running center with the second team, because Alec Eberle is also part of the walking wounded out there with George Campbell and Josh Kando and Emmett Rice, guys that I think people are hoping to get a lot of contributions out of. So the offensive line remains in flux.
It does. And I mean, there's a positive and a negative to that. Obviously, the negative is you want to try to figure out who your starting 5 are and get some cohesion there. But does that ever happen in the spring? It always seems like the spring is when offensive linemen are out. They've had their offseason surgery, so half of them aren't playing or they're limited. So it's just kind of a fact of life with football, I think, that offensive linemen typically aren't going to be 100% healthy in March. That's just not a time for offensive linemen to make great strides. But at the same time, the guys that didn't play at all last year, they get a chance to try to impress the coaches and get some work with the ones. And they all need it. I mean, you need depth. So it's, that's the positive of it, is you get other guys reps.
For me, the thing I would like to see if we were able to actually be out there, I want to see how the linebackers tackle, how they hit, and also to see how the running backs are going to, find the gaps and stuff.
If they're going to tackle.
Yeah. Maybe just
I don't know if they will, or if they, I don't know if they'll let them. I know Amari Gainer is going to tackle, because that dude doesn't care if it's two-hand touch, if you're just supposed to tap him on the shoulder, or if you're just supposed to thud. That dude will take you to the ground with authority. Like he's mean out there, which is a good thing for a linebacker. But on Friday, I saw 3 different ball carriers go to the ground after a hit. And remember, people, they're just being touched. They're not even in pads. And each time it was because of Amari Gainer. Like he just gets over there and decides to push him down. And then I think he pushed LeBourne down one time. And then when LeBourne was on his back on the ground, I thought Gainer was like reaching over to help him up. He was trying to rip the ball out. He's just he's a different kind of cat, man. And for a freshman to be that aggressive, he's also really big and rangy and fast. For him to be that aggressive, I know you don't want him to really hurt his teammates, obviously, but that's a really good sign for that kid to already be that, aggressive. That's what you want out of a linebacker.
Well, hey, I think I know I'm going to ask Willie Taggart this morning then. I'm going to ask him what his thoughts
You
are on
ask
Amari
about Amari
Gainer.
Gainer?
Yeah. Local kid.
Do it,
local
man.
kid, right?
I promise. Each time I notice, I'm like, man, that dude has no qualms with knocking a guy to the ground, even when he's just supposed to tap him.
Yeah. Well, there's so much more to talk about in terms of what we've observed from the first two practices, but we're out of time for now, which is a bit of a bummer. I had to talk about the Hamilton thing. I'm sorry, buddy. I still love Coach Ham, though. I got nothing but love for Coach, so don't think
Hambone. He's going to be a national championship coach next year at this time.
I can't put money in on the statue, but I can give free labor to help install it. So that's what I can offer to the university upon that 2019 national championship that Corey spoke about. We'll reconvene tomorrow, same time, same channel, hopefully on the same podcast that you digest this from. He's Corey. I'm Aslan's Wake Up War Chant. Jeff Cameron coming up at 3.
Darn pop-ups and video ads.
Are you wasting your time again on clickbait FSU updates that are bloated down with ads?
Yeah. And after crashing my computer, the information isn't even up to date. You're on warchant.com. What's really going on with the Seminoles?
For the real scoop, you'll need to get your own War Chant subscription.
What's it cost?
Free. There's a 30-day trial offer right now.
You know I like free. Sign me up.
Use the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Nobody has more accurate and timely information on the Noles than warchant.com.
Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.